Well, hello people. Welcome to GreenFire. Today is August 24th, 2016, a Wednesday in the heartland of Iowa, right here in the beautiful River City, Iowa. So today is a journey with the trees we're seeing here, and we're going to have a little invocation from way back in like 1200 AD to kind of get into the spirit of the trees, which is really part of who we are as part of the biodiversity of this biota that we live in the swim of this planet Earth, water planet. The trees are like the lungs of the earth, so they breathe out. They breathe in our carbon dioxide and they breathe out oxygen, so there's a symbiotic relationship. Asymmetrical as it is with the trees, we can have breath, we can have oxygen, so we can have a beautiful planet, we can have life itself, so that we are very grateful for trees in our lives. And certain trees are really quite stunning, and up in Northern California, there's the redwoods, which are redwood sempervirens, and there's some of the oldest biomass, largest biomass on the planet is up in Northern California and Oregon, in the rainforests, the temperate rainforests of the West Coast, which would be Northern California, Oregon, Washington, British Columbia, all the way up to Alaska, Ketchikan, and so forth, is all temperate rainforests. The Native American people are the Kwakiutl, the Lummi, the Haida, the Chimeketa, the Duwamish, the Snohomish, the Chinook, all these, the Siletz, the beautiful, beautiful people, Maidu, the Modoc, the Klamath, all have their own languages, indigenous as they are, and all are related by rivers. They say if you go from one river to another, you have to learn in a completely different language. And there's different rivers, St. Mary's River, Siletz, Siuslaw, so on, all the way down to Sacramento, the Sacramento River, the Klamath River, the Russian River. All these rivers have Native American indigenous roots, and the trees are center in their totems. Totems and the trees, and of course the trees have their own language, which is known as the Ogams, or in the ancient Celtic, Nordic, they're called the runes. And the runes have different stones. So we'll have a little bit of rune consciousness, rune enlightenment here at the beginning of this GreenFire today. We'll have a little bit of runic Futhark GreenFire. So in that sense, we have from an ancient text from the Old Nordic, Old Norse, there's a thing called the Poetic Edda, which is kind of the creation story of the Nordic people from 1200 AD. And so this text is, well, approximately 800 years old, which goes into Old English and then Frisian and then back into Nordic language, which is the northern people, Scandinavia, Norway. And they're in the old ways, before they were Christianized, they had a religion where Odin and Wotan were the high ones. We're called the high ones, Odin and Wotan. And here we are on Wednesday, and Wednesday, the root of Wednesday, the word Wednesday, actually is Odin's Day, which is Odin's Day, Wednesday. See, something we learn every day. So even in Wednesday is codified the ancient high one of the Nordic Celtic religion, Odin or Wotan. Wotan in Germany, I think, and Odin in the northern tribes. So this is kind of an invocation, in a way, of the speech of the High One, who was imaged that here's this beautiful tree here, and here's this human being like the High One, Odin, hanging on this tree and suffering almost like a crucifixion. And this is long before Christianity. So imagine this human being hanging on this tree, somewhat in suffering and tied to the tree and hanging there. And this is the speech of the High One on that tree, Odin. I know I hung on that windy tree, swung there for 9 long nights, wounded by my own blade, bloodied for Odin, myself an offering to myself, bound to the tree that no man knows, whither the roots of it run. None gave me bread, none gave me drink. Down to the deepest depths I peered, until I spied the runes. With a roaring cry I seized them up, then dizzy and fainting I fell. Well-being I won, and wisdom too. I grew and took joy in my growth. From a word to a word, I was led to a word. From a deed to another deed. That's how I learned the speech of the High One. So this is from the Old Norse. Imagine a language that is Finnic, Ergo, which is a little bit like Finland, up around the Arctic Circle, Norway, these Nordic tribes that lived up there in the fjords. And they have the tree as very central to their religion. And the tree is called Yggdrasil, Yggdrasil, which is also known as the world tree. So Odin is on the Yggdrasil, which is known as the world tree, and Odin spies the runes. So we'll cover this again with the speech of the High One. This is the tree Yggdrasil. I know I hung on that windy tree, swung there for 9 long nights, wounded by my own blade, bloodied for Odin, myself an offering to myself, bound to the tree that no man knows. Whither the roots of it run, no man knows. None gave me bread, none gave me drink. Down to the deepest depths I peered, until I spied the runes on the forest floor. The runes, the runes, the runes. With a roaring cry I seized them up, then dizzy and fainting, I fell. Well-being I won, and wisdom too. I grew and took joy in my growth. From a word to a word, I was led to a word. From a deed to another deed. And this is the speech of the High Ones. And the runes are spelled R-U-N-E. There's a marvelous little book you can called the Book of Runes by Ralph Bloom, B-L-U-M. If you want to look it up online and get a copy, it's really cool. You'll find a whole lot about the runes and the alphabet of the runes and how to make your own runes. These are like little etchings on stones that the ancient Nordic people used as an alphabet of nature, which is also the alphabet of trees, which have their own language. And as I was saying earlier, in the northern tribes of the west coast of North America, Native Americans on each river have their own language. So if you want to speak to another tribe upriver, you've got to learn a different language. And in order for you to be fluent, to be trading, say 4 watersheds over, like 4 rivers over, so like to a big river, you'll have to learn like 5 or 6 different languages to communicate to the various tribes on these different rivers or watersheds. And that was the way of trade at that time, because everything was by canoe. And the big ships didn't come, the tall ships, the Captain Cook didn't come until the late 1700s, probably around 1780. And that was Cook was on the west coast in Astoria around that time. And that's how Lewis and Clark kind of got their info, was actually from Captain Cook, who had gone up the Pacific coast, say like 50, 40 years earlier. So that's the speech of the High One for this beautiful tree that is part of our lives. And so there is, in that sense, the emergence of the runes is a form of oracle, or it's like an oracle culture, as the runes are oracular, which is an oracle. And the definition is from the Latin oraculum, which means a divine announcement. And among the ancient Greeks and Romans, it was the place where, or the medium by which deities were consulted. And then B was the revelation or response of a medium or a priest. So maybe they didn't call themselves mediums. I think they were more called priests or druids, something like that. And they would be in response to that. And then secondly, any person or agency believed to be in communication with a deity, which most likely is a nature deity. Something could be the tree, could be the forest, could be the sprites, the little ones, could be the spirit of the plants. And then B, any person of great knowledge or wisdom would be considered an oracle. Any person of great knowledge or wisdom. Opinions or statements opinions or statements of any such oracle, which should also be considered an oracle. And then thirdly, the Holy of Holies of the ancient Jewish temple was called the oracle. And this is from the New World Dictionary. And then, so this is like from the book of Kings. It says, and the oracle he be prepared in the house within to set there the ark of the covenant of the Lord. So there's relationships here. If you listen to that thing we talked about with Odin, there's like a real connection, look like Christ on the cross. And if you saw the picture in the book, you definitely would say, yeah, that's very connected. And so there's these different connections, and this is from Kings. And the oracle be prepared in the house within to set there the ark of the covenant of the Lord. So the oracle being prepared in the house within, it's not talking about some house. You could talk about a church or a temple or a synagogue. But in this case, actually, they're talking about the house within is within our own temple, our own inner being. The house within, the inner tabernacle, the inner sanctuary, was the house within our own being. And that would be preparing our oracle in the house within ourselves. And that then set there within the ark of the covenant of the Lord, which makes more sense in that wherever we go, there the divine is, whether we're aware of it or not. And so when we hear about the ark of the covenant is that rainbow, which is after the flood, that we will never be destroyed by flood again, but we would have a rainbow. The ark of the covenant is the rainbow, but also within, we have the ark of the covenant within an oracle. So, and the oracle be prepared in the house within to set there the ark of the covenant of the Lord. So here you see the bridging of two cultures. The Celtic culture, which is Nordic, and the poetic Eddas, and then this reference to the oracle as to set there the ark of the covenant of the Lord, which is within the Bible, which is in Kings, which is a part of the Testament. So you have a rainbow bridge across two distinct different cultures. You have the Nordic poetic Edda of the northern tribes, which is way not Christianized, way before Christianity. And then you have the Mediterranean religion, the Hebrew religion, and the Christian religion, talking about the Ark of the Covenant and the oracle. So these runes play a definite linguistic connector to an ancestral inheritance that does not come from the Mediterranean religion. That the Mediterranean religion, you could call it one of the Abrahamic religion, is a desert religion, more like the Dead Sea and the Red Sea, the Dead Sea. It's a desert religion, whereas the Nordic Celtic religion is a forest religion, a religion of the trees. So we're sitting here in the forest heart of the trees with the runes, the runic discovery of the runes, the emergence. And so this is a little deeper in that if you want to go to the dendritic roots, you go to the roots of the forest culture. So this is, again, you think of the Christ figure as well. Does Christ so you ask yourself that inner sanctum question about the oracle and reflect on that so we can breathe it in. Because we're dealing in some difficult times, dear friends, right now with global warming and humidity off the charts, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So this is an invitation to the rune of hospitality. And this is like ancient Celtic Gaelic, from the Gaelic. I saw a stranger yestereen. I put food in the eating place, drink in the drinking place, music in the listening place. And in the sacred names of the triune, he blessed me and my house, my cattle and my dear ones. And the lark said in her song, often, often, often goes the Christ in the stranger's guise. Often, often, often goes the Christ in the stranger's guise. And this is Celtic from the Gaelic. And the Christ figure goes back into Denmark around 980 A.D. So this is the rune of hospitality. And this goes back into the Futharks of the Poetic Eddas, but is also brought into Western, the Christianized mind. You could call it the empire, the mind that has been empirized, maybe vampirized, but for sure the Christianized mind. And it goes again, it's called the rune of hospitality. I saw a stranger yestereen. I put food in the eating place, drink in the drinking place, music in the listening place. And in the sacred names of the triune, he blessed me and my house, my cattle and my dear ones. And the lark said in her song, often, often, often goes the Christ in the stranger's guise. Often, often, often goes the Christ in the stranger's guise. And that's from the Gaelic, and this goes way back to 980. So there's already these bridges. You could call it the Ark of the Covenant, the Rainbow Bridge being made from a tree culture. And this is from the tree culture, and it could be very well borrowed into the Christian culture. Because as I say this, dear friend, a lot of the early monastic settings way back into Benedict, and those were desert ascetic cultures as well, that began the monastic culture, was in the deserts and then Greece. But by the time they got to Western Europe and Ireland, they were the ones that were making illuminated manuscripts when it was keeping the culture going. When the West went down into a dark age that was what was hundreds of years long. And during the Dark Ages, the monks were the ones that kept the culture, the language, and the alphabet together. And it was said when in one of the rules of the monastic rules of St. Benedict is when you see a stranger at the door, therefore you see Christ in another guise. So you can see the another analogic trimorphic proto-anoia parallel, but also connect, a real cultural connection, left brain, right brain, with the Nordic cultures of saying with the runes, the hospitality of runes are saying the same thing. I saw a stranger yestereen. I put food in the eating place, drink in the drinking place, music in the listening place. And in the sacred names of the triune, he blessed me and my house, my cattle and my dear ones. And the lark said in her song, often, often, often goes the Christ in the stranger's guise. This is pretty special language here. And the lark in her song, the lark, the bird, comes singing in at the window and says, often, often, often goes the Christ in the stranger's guise. Often, often, often goes the Christ in the stranger's guise. This is from the Gaelic, dear friend. And you see the rune of hospitality is very much connected with one of the great protocols, principles of the Benedictine, the rule of Saint Benedict, which began around 400 A.D. To welcome the stranger at the door. So what are the applications today? Well, the applications today is, and being careful, not being totally, being careful about who you let in, that you get the stranger at the door. It could be Christ in the stranger's guise, but again, being careful. But seeing the stranger as Christ and yourself as Christ, offering a little bit of hospitality, no matter how small that may be, depending on how you're able to be in that moment, in that situation, by surprise by a stranger. The stranger sometimes also has to realize that they have a responsibility. Have they called in advance? Did they just knock at a person's door and just say, okay, you got to take care of me? Well, I'm sorry, but you don't have to take care of them. That's their obligation to let you know. And if they really need help, they can say, help, I need help. And then you can help them. But the stranger at the door is part of the hospitality of the rune of hospitality. So in caring for the least of these, that's one of the primary tenets of the Christian, the early Christian monastic tradition, but also of the early Christian communicants and who actually gathered in homes. And we're going way before that. This is in the Nordic fjord forest religion of Odin and the poetic Eddas, and we're going to stay there, as there's a lot of understanding and reconnection with our deep northern soul to re-inhabit here. We're going to look at, for a brief moment, hexagram number 49 of the I Ching, the Book of Changes, this is hexagram 49. See if you can see any relations between Occidental and Oriental ways of being. The forces at work in the situation are in conflict. Just see how this feels and fits to where we're at right now. The forces at work in the situation are in conflict, leaving the path open to change. Yet the work of bringing about such a change is as difficult as it is important. People fear change because of its unknowable effect upon the future. So when a real need for changing makes itself felt, it is a serious matter indeed. Clarity, forethought, and great devotion are now required to achieve our purpose. If correctly handled, however, the results can lead to a progressive new era. Does that sound like that's where we're at right about now? This is hexagram 49, which is the hexagram of the revolutionary. And if you want to look up the revolutionary, check out Mozart, who wrote a composition on the revolutionary. The forces at work in the situation are in conflict. It sounds like about where we're at now. Leaving the path open to change. Yet the work of bringing about such a change is as difficult as it is important. People fear change because of its unknowable effect upon the future. So when a real need for changing makes itself felt, it is a serious matter indeed. So you can feel these different forces are making themselves felt. Are they real? And is it a real need for change? And it is a serious matter indeed. Clarity, forethought, and greater devotion are now required to achieve our purpose. Now it's required clarity, devotion, great devotion, and forethought. And if this is correctly handled, however, the results can lead to a progressive new era. In that sense, we will take a look at what's happening. And sometimes we get caught up in all the swim of being called in to pay attention to all these things. And then sometimes we step back, and that's what we do in this GreenFire, is to reflect on what's the deep ecology of ourselves. And so we'll make it easy to step inside this poem. So we reflect on that, and we're saying, we're going to make it easy here, and we're going to breathe a little bit, and breathe a little bit more. Breathe in love, breathe out peace. Breathe in love, breathe out peace. We're going to breathe in love today, and we're going to breathe out peace. And we're going to make it easy to step inside the palindrome and the biome of this poem. And we're inside as we speak. So take a deep breath, dear friend, and look around. And we're going to enter what is the last third of the month of August. We're still at a month of summer yet to go, and we're grateful for that. I hope your summer has been good. I hope your travels have been well. Maybe you have traveled, maybe you've stayed at home and had a garden. Maybe you didn't do anything, but may you be well wherever you're at. And I think sometimes we'll take this moment to have a moment of gratitude. And in this gratitude, we'll just step inside of this and reflect. I want to remember that I was hungry, so I never forget to say thank you over a meal. A sliced cucumber, strawberries from the garden. How about some sweet corn from Iowa? I want to remember that I was confused and lost, and yet I found my way. I learned to ask for help. I learned that I am not alone. Sounds like the rune for hospitality. I want to remember that I was cold, so I will bless the sun, the heat, the hot water, blankets on a bed, a shawl around my shoulder. I remember that I was exhausted and let my body release into a savasana pose as my breath rose and fell in contentment. I want to remember that the grief threatened to carry me over the edge. I could not unfold my wings, scorched from the cremation of a child into ash. The edge between madness and the ability to carry on. The dance between oblivion and love, feeling that one more day in such pain was impossible. And yet I walked step by step and took one more breath while my wings were repaired by the loving hands of friends and angels and my own determined self. I want to remember that I was terrified and did it anyway. I was angry and betrayed and learned forgiveness. I was a stranger and found home wherever I could light a candle and say a prayer. I want to remember that I stood in darkness in order to adore the light. I stood in silence in order to find my voice. I want to remember my tears and the way they brought me salt. That's a beautiful reflection on gratitude. And in gratitude, we put some latitude in our attitude to achieve altitude. And from altitude, we can see much greater depths and heights. And then from that altitude, we can reach orbit. And in that sense, we're doing the dance that says doing the doing gets done. And we're digging in the dirt in the mix here. This is calling forth myths, and we will touch on that in a little bit. But what we're going to do here is a little shape-shifting into the present time, the present mind, and then we will return to calling forth myths. The prairie fire, sometimes you have to say there's an angel of the prairie. We live on prairie all of our lives, most of us, and we've traveled here and there throughout North America, better known as Turtle Island, and we return to prairie or to the heartland. Some people call it prairie. And what we're going to do here is travel into the present time and revisit something that's happening right now, and it's really important that we do. And as this is going on, we'll just say there is at Standing Rock Reservation in North Dakota, right as we speak, there is a peace encampment called the Sacred Stone Camp, and there's probably a couple thousand people there, and they're having what's called the Gathering of the Tribes. And today, August 24th at 3 o'clock, our time, in Washington, D.C., the federal court is going to rule whether they grant an injunction to stop this Dakota access pipeline from going through their sacred burial grounds and their watershed source, their aquifer there. So this is the Standing Rock Reservation. This is where Chief Sitting Bull was buried, about 5 miles from there. So this is a piece that is called the Gathering of the Tribes, and it has such great implications. And we'll touch into those in just a little bit. Not since the Gathering of the Tribes, not since Little Bighorn have 87 tribes come together in the council fire. In North Dakota, the sheriff says, at Morrow County, the sheriff says they're bringing in pipe bombs. They're bringing pipe bombs in there. So that's what the local sheriff is saying. In truth, they're bringing in sacred pipes for a peace ceremony. And so you hear the sheriff saying, oh, they're bringing pipe bombs in. He's trying to send out fear and rage among the population through the media, saying these people are violent and dangerous. And in truth, they're bringing in sacred pipes for a prayer ceremony. So what are they setting the field for, if not for some governmental or some other troops to come in there and cause havoc because of some fear that they may have some violence, and there's no violence whatsoever. There's no violence whatsoever. They're having sacred pipe ceremonies and prayer ceremonies. So you've got a really media blackout, plus a really hardcore right-wing government up there with the governor and the local sheriff, because they're in bed with the Bakken pipeline, which is in northwest North Dakota. These pipeline owners and the big business boys, they're all in bed with the sheriff and the governor. So it shows you've got just a volatile mix up there of this bitter bitumen brew. Call it what Miles Davis calls the bitches brew. Call it the witches brew. And it's happening right up there at this Standing Rock Indian Reservation, where they're standing in front of the Dakota Access Pipeline and saying this far and no further for this Bakken crude sludge oil. So off we go. North Dakota sheriff says they're bringing pipe bombs in. In truth, they're bringing in sacred pipes for the prayer ceremony. Such is the disconnect that there's a total media blackout. CNN had wall-to-wall coverage of the Malheur National Refuge takeover in February by the Bundys and the renegade Mormons. The Bundys and the renegade Mormons. So CNN had wall-to-wall coverage night and day of the Malheur takeover in Oregon by the Bundys. And here, the Indians' lives have been marginalized. The Bundys get more media than an entire sovereign nation. Standing Rock treaty sovereignty under international law you cannot treaty away your existence. So here you have the Standing Rock Indian Reservation, and it has treaty sovereignty under international law, and you cannot treaty away this people's existence. Sovereign nations, what's up with this? The Fort Laramie Treaty of 1864 and 1884, look them up. The media must report what's really happening here. And there's a media blackout. The media must really report what's happening here. And not a spinatron sound bites of a lackadaisical presidential season. Let's have a Twitter storm and hammer CNN for no coverage. So the Twitter will read NODAPL, which means No Dakota Access Pipeline. NODAPL hashtag. NODAPL hashtag. And send it to CNN, and let's have a Twitter storm and talk about human rights, international rights, and civil rights are the issue here. This is the largest contiguous land area, larger than El Salvador, and that's in North Dakota. There are being road blockades to the Sacred Stone camp, and as well as the Army Corps of Engineers is issuing permits to this Dakota Access Pipeline. Now, if you ask yourself these questions, are these Bill of Rights violations? When you have a road blockade, when you have a blockage of a road to go to a peace camp, that's a Bill of Rights violation, violation of the right to assemble and freedom of speech. That road blockage is a Bill of Rights, and just have a Twitter storm to CNN on that issue, as well as the Army Corps of Engineers permits, which are illegal as the day is long. And so let's continue on as the gathering of the tribes. And Vine Deloria, who is one of the great Native American or great American writers of the 20th century, who had written three or four of the really important books of our time. Vine Deloria was born on Standing Rock Reservation. He was Standing Rock Sioux. And Vine Deloria wrote these books, and three of them I'll give to you. One is called God is Red. The other is We Talk, You Listen. And the third is Custer Died for Your Sins. So this is Vine Deloria, Deloria. Vine Deloria is one of the great American philosophers and writers of our culture. He's Native American. He wrote God is Red, We Talk, You Listen, and Custer Died for Your Sins. And these are key books to touch into in order to get a background for what's happening up here at Standing Rock Reservation. And then Paul Street, who is a current writer for socialism and environmental issues. He's from Iowa City. He has a couple books, and he's also from Chicago. He wrote a book on Obama. Has a really important article on the people of Iowa and North Dakota fighting this Dakota pipeline, this Bakken pipeline, but it's Dakota Access Pipeline. And go to truthdig.org, 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 and check out Paul Street's really remarkable 3-page article on what's happening at Standing Rock and also here in Iowa. on this Dakota Access Pipeline. And so Vine Deloria, who is Standing Rock Sioux, and here is the spirit of Sitting Bull, and here is the spirit of Crazy Horse, and the spirit of Wounded Knee, and the spirit of Little Bighorn, and the spirit of Leonard Peltier's mother, and the spirit of Robert Robideau, and the spirit of Joe Stuntz, and the spirit of Anime Aquash, and the spirit of Red Cloud, and the spirit of AIM, and the spirit of Sacred Stone Speaking, and the spirit of Chinumpa, and the spirit of Red Blanket from Walk Across America for Mother Earth, and the spirit of White Buffalo Calf Woman, calling into being this Sacred Stone Spirit Camp. This is the Red Warrior Camp as well. Enter in a spirit way, dear friend. Enter in a spirit way in prayer, where all the people are gathering. Light your candle. The 7th Cavalry Dakota Pipeline will be shut down by the people with Standing Rock Sacred Prayer Camp. There's something happening here. There's something happening here, and you don't know what it is, do you, Mr. Jones? There's something happening here, and you don't know what it is, do you, Mr. Jones? And what have you got to lose? Ask yourself, what have you got to lose to join these people? Either here in Iowa, up at Standing Rock Reservation at Sacred Stone Spirit Camp. What have you got to lose? There's something happening here, and what it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there asking me, do I have to declare? It's time to stop. Children, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. There's a man with a gun over there a-telling me I got to beware. It's time to stop. Children, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going round. There's something happening here. What have you got to lose? So this is called The People Are Gathering of the Tribes. And these are not just the red tribes. These are all the tribes of all the rainbow hoops. The white nations, the red nations, the black nations, and the yellow nations. This is red, yellow, black, and white. Those are the hoops of all the nations. The gathering of the tribes. So go to sacredstonecamp.org. or nobakken.com, BAKKEN.com, and there'll be perks there to tell you what to do. If you want to send money, they could use money for these court cases for the people who've gotten arrested, or they could use clothing and support of different such nature as clothing and so forth, books, but mostly blankets, food, clothing. And do what you can. And like here in the heartland, there's something happening here. And if you want to know where the revolution is, dear friend, you're in the heart of the revolution right now. The revolution is happening. And the question is, are you just sitting there? Are you just watching The Millionaire? Are you watching The Bachelor? Are you watching a sporting event? Are you watching the Olympics? Or are you going to get off your feet and stand up and join in support? And we're not talking violence here. We're talking prayerful support, focused, non-violent, direct action, where you have compassion and you have no drugs, no weapons. Your hands are free. And you come with prayer in your heart and compassion. And ruthless compassion, where your love and rage are connected to a higher purpose for the people, we the people. That's nonviolent direct action. Okay. The second part of that is a piece that I just wrote, inviting all the people in RAGBRAI. Hey, people in RAGBRAI, how many are you out there? There's like 20,000 RAGBRAI people this year that rode across Iowa and enjoyed a beautiful 7 days in a beautiful land of Iowa. This is a piece I wrote called Taking Deadeye with RAGBRAI Jedi. Attention all RAGBRAI riders, now that you've successfully ridden across Iowa and dipped your wheels in the Mississippi, now is your obligation to ride into the center of Iowa from all four directions, north, south, east, and west. If you have enjoyed your bike rides across Iowa, and I know you have, all 20,000 plus of you, if you have enjoyed your bike rides across Iowa, now is your time to pay back to Iowa. Now is your time to pay back to Iowa for providing the beautiful heartland you rode across and experienced. Now is your time to rise and shine if you are a true RAGBRAI person. Now is your time to rise and shine if you are a true RAGBRAI and show your true colors. Are you just in it for the game? Are you just in it for all the hoots and the freebies? Are you just in it for the ride? Don't you think it's time for you to pay a little back? Don't you think it's time for you to pay a little back? Dear friend, don't you think it's time for you to pay a little back? And don't you think it's time for you to pay a little bit forward to the future? So we'll send our eyes into the future and ask how we can pay a little bit forward to the future. So sending our eyes into the future. As a RAGBRAI rider, oh rider, when have you come? Oh rider, you're gonna miss this one if you haven't come. Oh RAGBRAI rider, you're gonna miss this one if you haven't come, 'cause this is the time. As a RAGBRAI rider, haven't you experienced the positive beauty of Iowa's landscape? Haven't you experienced the positive beauty of Iowa's landscape? Haven't you experienced the joy of one another's company? As you both, one and all, rode through and experienced Iowa's gentle, rolling, exquisite beauty this summer in late July. Now is the time for you to have a second RAGBRAI ride, dear friend, into the heart of darkness in Iowa, the northwest-southeast diagonal Bakken-Dakota pipeline being shoved down the throats of all Iowans. And as we speak, all 20+ thousand of you could step up and say, hey, will do. Hey, will do. All 20+ thousands of you celebrate saying, hey, will do. All over the country and all over the planet. Now is the time for all RAGBRAI riders to come to the aid of Heartland, Iowa. Now is the time for all RAGBRAI riders to come to the aid of Heartland, Iowa. This is where the beginning of the revolution that they talked about in the Feel the Burn. This is where the beginning of the revolution begins, and feel the burn. And now is the time for all RAGBRAI riders to come to the aid of Iowa. Now is the time for RAGBRAI riders to get off their haunches and get off their seats and come together in thousands to do direct action. Now is the time for the RAGBRAI riders, all 20,000 plus of you, to get off your haunches, to get off their haunches, to get off their seats, and come together in thousands to do direct action. Go to the pipeline and shut it down. Go to the pipeline and shut it down by direct action or through the courts, non-violently. Let your true colors shine, dear friend. Let your true colors shine and carry on, shine on through and come together. So this is a call, a wake-up call to an invitation and an invocation to and for all RAGBRAI writers, current and in the past, and in the future if you're preparing for next year. Well, it's time for a little off-the-road RAGBRAI ride. Still a lot of fun. You can have fun, and if you're going to have a revolution, you might as well have a party and a dance. So this is called Taking Deadeye with the RAGBRAI Jedi. Attention, all RAGBRAI writers. Now that you have successfully ridden across Iowa and dipped your wheels in the Mississippi, now is your obligation to the writers to ride into the center of Iowa from all four directions, north, south, east, and west. If you have enjoyed your bike rides across Iowa, now is your time to pay back to Iowa for providing the beautiful heartland you rode across and experienced. Now is your time to rise and shine, dear RAGBRAI writer, and don't let yourself off the hook or any of your other fellow RAGBRAI writers. It's time for you to come front and center, to confront the center of the heart of darkness, the Dakota pipeline threatening to cut a line and rape and pillage the dear heart bosom of Mother Earth, Iowa. Now is your time to rise and shine, if you are the true RAGBRAI people, and show your true colors. Are you just in it for the game? Are you just in it for all the hoots and the freebies and all the funsies that all the little towns and the kind town folk of the little towns of Iowa provide for you? These are questions of conscience. Are you just in it for all the hoots and the freebies? Are you just in it for the game? Are you just in it for the ride, just the RAGBRAI ride, and all the lemonade and all the beer you can drink? Don't you think it's time for you to pay a little back, dear RAGBRAI writer? Don't you think it's time for you to pay a little back, dear RAGBRAI writer? Oh, RAGBRAI writer, you're gonna miss yourself when it's too late for you to come. Oh, RAGBRAI writer, you're gonna miss yourself when it's too late for you to come. Oh, RAGBRAI writer, you're gonna miss yourself when it's too late and you're gone. And the beauty of the Iowa heartland is raped and plundered by this pipeline, and your RAGBRAI across Iowa is gone, the beauty of it. The heart and soul is at stake here, dear RAGBRAI writer. Are you in? Are you in? Oh, RAGBRAI writer, you're going to miss your time if you haven't come when it's time. Oh, RAGBRAI writer, you're going to miss it if you've come and it's gone. Oh, RAGBRAI writer, you're going to miss it if it's come and you're gone. So it's time to pay a little back. Don't you think it's time for you to pay a little bit forward to the future, to the seventh generation yet to come, who are the little toddlers on wheels, on bike wheels right now? And for the seventh generation toddlers that you can't even think of, you can't even speak of, don't you think it's time for you to pay a little bit forward, dear RAGBRAI writer, to the seventh generation of RAGBRAI writers yet to come? As a RAGBRAI writer, haven't you experienced the positive beauty of Iowa's landscape? Haven't you experienced the joy of one another's company as you both, one and all, rode across the beautiful bosom of the heartland, Iowa, and experienced Iowa's gentle rolling, exquisite beauty? Now it's time for you to have a second RAGBRAI ride, dear friend. Now it's time for you to have a second RAGBRAI ride into the heart of darkness in Iowa, which is known as the Northeast, the Northwest, Southeast Diagonal Dakota Pipeline, Access Pipeline, being shoved down the throats of all Iowans as we speak. All 20,000+ of you all over the country and all over the planet, now is the time for our RAGBRAI riders to come to the aid of Heartland, Iowa. This is where the beginning of the revolution is. Now is the time for all you RAGBRAI riders to come to the aid of Iowa. Now is the time for RAGBRAI riders to get off their haunches and get off their seats and come together in thousands to do direct action. Go to the pipeline and shut it down. Let your true colors shine on through, dear friend. So this is a little bit of NEM's campaign for preeminent domain. And in that sense, there is a something about going up high in the high rocky divide. So you're the best kept secret in the silver rain. The river is wide enough for something to move, dear friend. Currents are deep and swift, something to slip into. White water, rapid level, force 5. No need for paddling, just rolling and crashing with the wild river. Take me up into the mountains, dear friend. Take me up into the mountains, up into the forest glen, above Glenwood Springs, way up high into the Holy Land, the shining mountains on the dark side of the Great Divide, up in Paonia, August, for a high, wide, and sweet cherry festival, where the streets are piled high in sweet medicine, juicy red sweet cherries, Colorado cherries, and the High Divide. This is fruit for the journey, dear friends. On going to the Sun Trail, trekking into the high country, carrying our gear mile after mile up Forest Service roads and up Forest Service trails, higher up for miles and miles and hours, to a welcome home ceremony at around 10,000 feet, at least, which wiped away our tears for years, washing our spirits clean in a planetary home ceremony. And this was in a circle a mile wide on the 4th of July. People holding hands at noon, mountain meditation, 3 miles high, time in a Gaia smile for Turtle Island and North America, breaking out into the reckless abandon, merriment and drumming and dancing until the crimson sunrise dawn the next morning. Well, dear friend, we were spinning those 144,000 rainbow dreamer wheels as we moved in circles and twinned and spin and spun and twirled and whirled, dancing the stars alive in this planetary prayer, saying, "May peace prevail upon earth in the rainbow hoops of all the nations. Red, yellow, black, and white, here at the High Divide, 3 miles high, up in the high country, up in Paonia, on the Great Divide. This includes the hue of you, dear friend. So may you spin and dance your dreamer wheel alive in whatever you do. And may you breathe joy and love from one heart to another. And breathe it in and breathe it out. Breathe in love and breathe out peace. Breathe in love and breathe out peace. Breathe in love and breathe out peace." With that, I wish you well. May you have a beautiful circle the coming week. Peace.